What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald show about this Inter Miami soccer squad, which is in the midst of one of its worst stretches in quite some time, in the Messi era for sure. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, here to discuss what's going on with this team alongside Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. And we're going to dive in and talk right away about this team. And we thought maybe, just maybe, that 3-3 draw on the road against San Jose, although not the best possible outcome, was a building block, and maybe this team was ready to turn the corner. Things got worse against Orlando City at home. Another embarrassing defeat, 3-0. Their state rivals came in and kicked their tails. Lionel Messi got a yellow card for the second game in a row, and luckily it didn't escalate from there, even though he didn't have Bruce Arena to protect them that time. But nothing too worse for Messi there as far as that goes. But the bad news is this team's only won one match in its last 7, and it's slowly dropping in the standings, now in 6th place in the Eastern Conference, with a tough road game coming up against the first place Philadelphia Union. So we'll break down everything that's gone wrong with this team. We'll hear some reaction from Jordi Alba, from Yannick Bright, from Javier Mascherano, of course. We'll look back at that San Jose game where some things went right, some things went wrong, but we've got to dive in and talk about the debacle against Orlando, who's to blame, and kind of review maybe even that first goal, which was a little bit controversial, but led to what happened next. And basically this team, even with Luis Suarez back, which was another thing that we thought, another development that this team that its fans thought might be a highlight, might be getting him back could spark this team. No, Miami is struggling right now, and things aren't going to get any easier. So, Michelle, let's discuss what you're and
Let's
actually
start. Let's dive in.
you're writing
I just wrote a
writing
column.
before
I
about a column
Yeah,
about them. So
I
go
wrote a
right ahead.
column. You guys can all go to miamiherald.com and find my column. I did a deep dive into some of the things we're talking about today, about what is wrong with this team, who's to blame. I took a big picture look, because it's very easy. I mean, on social media, everybody's just Mascherano out, fire Mascherano. Mascherano stinks. But I've been covering sports for 38 years, and it's a lot more complicated than that. It almost always is. It's usually not just one thing that's going wrong with a team. So we're going to go into some of that on the show today. And then for more, you can also read my column in miamiherald.com. So, yeah, I mean, going back, should we go back to the San Jose game? They scored Peluca. They didn't have Fafa. They didn't have Luis Suarez. Everyone said, oh no, they don't have them again. They didn't have them in Minnesota. They're going to play this tough game against Bruce Arena's team that scored all those goals. And then Peluca scores 36 seconds into the game. He scores a goal. And the whole team is celebrating. Everyone, you could just see the weight lifted off their shoulders. They finally scored. They were all excited. And then 3 minutes later, bam, they give up a goal. This is obviously a recurring theme with this team. They score and then they concede. They score and then they concede. They have a very tough time holding a lead, and that's really loss of concentration. They were still maybe celebrating that Peluca goal or whatever. They were not, they let themselves, let their guard down, and boom, San Jose scores 3 minutes later. It turns out Dalio Allende came out of his funk. He had been in a slump. He came out and scored 2 goals. He scored a brace, and so you would think 3 goals. They scored 3 goals at San Jose. They had not been scoring. They were coming off that horrible game in Minnesota. You think this team has scored 3 goals? Okay, they should win the game, but no, they end up tying 3-3. So it's kind of a disappointment. Toward the end of the game, Messi thought that there was a foul and it should have been called a foul. It was not. That would have given them, a free kick or whatever. PK free kick. I think it was outside the box, a free kick. But in any case, the referee did not call it. After the game, Messi was very frustrated and was yelling and arguing with the referee. And the referee says to him, walk away now, with his finger in Messi's face. And Messi is still jawing at him, basically, I think saying in Spanish, like, fine, throw me out. And Bruce Arena came to the rescue, good old Bruce came in and stepped in, basically put his hand on Messi's back and escorted him off the field, not his bodyguard. His bodyguard at that moment was Bruce Arena. Bruce Arena led Messi off the field. And afterward, Bruce said, look, you know, I could tell that Messi was very upset, but it would have been ridiculous for him to get a red card after the game. I wanted to make sure we got him out of there so that he could play in the next game for Miami. So that was a really class thing to do, by the way, from Bruce,
Yeah,
very veteran coach.
definitely.
He knows what's best for the league, and what's best for everybody is for Messi to be playing. So he helped him off the field and averted a red card, bad situation. Um,
The
but yeah,
thank you card from Apple and everybody else is in the mail, Bruce. We thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Bruce, thank you, Bruce. Yeah, and then they come back, and it's like, okay, Luis Suarez is back from his brother-in-law's wedding. Finally, the wedding, the celebration that lasted a week. Back from that, Fafa was back from his migraine headaches, although he is being apparently he's being checked by a specialist because he has some kind of sinus issue that leads to headaches. So, but they were both back in training. They announced that Jordi Alba has signed a new contract, a 2-year extension till 2027. So they're bringing out the good news. The team mood was a little bit lifted by the 3-3 tie. They're going into a home game against Orlando, and Jordi Alba signs a 2-year extension, leading to speculation that maybe Messi will be next. Let's hear what Jordi Alba had to say about that before we go on to everything that was to come.
Bueno, al final la renovación soy yo, ¿no? Yo no renuevo por nadie, ni está claro que ojalá que se quede Leo. Creo que es un jugador vital para nosotros y también obviamente para el club, pero bueno, yo al final pues tengo que mirar por mí y no por los demás, pero bueno, entiendo la preocupación vuestra y está claro que también para mí, obviamente, que se quede Leo, pues muchísimo mejor, ¿no? Creo que ya nos conocemos de muchísimos años, ya se ve en el campo pues el entendimiento que tenemos y para mí, ya lo he dicho muchas veces, que estando Leo, pues yo y cualquiera del equipo pues somos mejores jugadores, ¿no? Y creo que sería una buena noticia que Leo continuara, está claro.
¿Han hablado de ese tema con Leo, con Bruce y con Suárez? ¿Han hablado del futuro?
No, cada uno tiene su idea, creo que tiene una situación pues cada uno personal y cada uno pues actuará de la manera que crea conveniente, ¿no? Yo al final pues bueno, decido por mí mismo, ya soy bastante mayorcito para decidir. Obviamente para mí pues sería importante que ellos se quedaran, pero entiendo cada uno la situación que tiene y la idea que tenga cada uno, ya sea familiar o personalmente, cómo se sienta en esto que es el fútbol. Ya tenemos obviamente una edad, si estamos aquí es porque consideramos que podemos seguir compitiendo y el día que no sea así, pues te hablo por mí, ya tenga el contrato que tenga y la edad que tenga, pues decidiré irme, ¿no? O sea, ahora me encuentro muy bien y por eso pues la renovación, pues el día que no me sienta así, pues obviamente pues decidiré irme, ¿no? Y ya está, no hay más.
So yeah, for those of you who don't have the benefit of the subtitles, Jordi Alba was saying that he feels really good. He felt like this was a good time. He wants to end his career here. He said, obviously, with my age, my goal is, my intent is to end my career here with Inter Miami. And then he said, as far as, does this mean that Leo Messi is going to sign next? Is this a sign that the big four are all going to come back or anything like that? And he said, I only speak for myself. I signed just for myself. I'm the big boy. He basically said, I'm a big boy. I can make decisions for myself. Each one of us has to make the decision that's best for our particular situation. And for me, this was the right time to sign. I'm still feeling good. I wanted to play 2 more years and finish here. Each player is going to make their own decision. He said, obviously, it's best for everybody if Leo returns. For me, I've been his teammate for a long time, for the club, for the fans, everybody would like to see him come back. But he said that the fact that he signed is not necessarily a sign that Leo Messi is going to sign. Although I am hearing whispers that that is in the works and that is going to happen, and that the big plan was, to make an announcement at a strategic time when they will then launch a big season ticket sale for the new stadium. So we'll talk about that a little later. But anyway, that's what Jordi had to say about returning.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense at this point in their careers, both of them, and kind of where things are at right now. But this thing did not get any better against Orlando. In fact, they got a lot worse, and it was an embarrassing loss in front of their home crowd. You never want to lose to your rival, especially a team like Orlando. We know the bad blood that continues to exist between these two teams, and especially now with all the hype Miami gets for obvious reasons. And now Orlando kind of probably Orlando in one of the best stretches coming in that they've been in quite some time themselves. I mean,
11 games unbeaten.
11 unbeaten.
Yeah, they've 11 unbeaten. Yeah.
Yeah. So they come in.
They're on a roll.
They're on a big roll. They jump Miami in the standings. They're now in 5th place, yes, 2 points ahead of Miami. And that first goal, I mean, this is some of the issues we've been talking about, how, they're not getting back quick enough on defense, that sort of thing, counterattacks. Their goalie launches one, 2/3 of the field downfield, and it's controlled by Luis Muriel. And, I guess they're arguing it should not happen. I mean, on one touch, and then boom, he gets the cross by Ustari. Miami was kind of complaining that, was he offside? Was he onside? But still, to get the ball past everyone on a goal clearance kick, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, they were arguing because they thought that it was a back pass. They thought, and especially, I mean, Messi was like,
Messi
from
was
the
livid.
second that the goalkeeper, he was livid, and most of them were. And I think half the team was so focused on arguing about that call that they all of a sudden, what happened was, you're not allowed to make a back pass to the goalkeeper, his own teammate. And it looked like it was on a throw-in by Ian Frey. Actually, the throw-in was to Messi right near the corner, near the right corner. Messi's foot touches the ball and it bounces off, and to be honest, bounces into the path of one of their defenders. Their defender passes it, intends to pass it to another one of their players, but that player lets the ball go by intentionally. You can see lets the ball go by, and it goes to the keeper. The keeper then bends down and picks it up. Messi immediately starts arguing that that's a back pass from a teammate to the goalkeeper, which is not allowed. But the ruling was that that pass was not intended for the goalie. That pass for the goalkeeper. That pass was intended for the teammate. The teammate let it go, and then that starts a new play, and it ends up in the hands of the keeper. So anyway, it was a controversy. Messi and half the team were livid. Their arms were up. They were arguing. In the meantime, while they were arguing, the keeper picks up the ball, cranks it 2/3 all the way up the field. Miami was playing with 3 center backs. There was nobody there. All of a sudden, they're running and chasing, like we've talked about, has been an issue. Yeah. And the next thing you know, they score.
Brilliant play by Orlando. Brilliant play. Good control by Muriel. Basically just controlled it with his foot. Got a quick cross pass to Ustari. But yeah, you can't.
Yeah. What can you say? So they get that goal. And then, Messi said afterward, Messi did a rare interview. By the way, his first interview with Apple this season, post-game. I know, everyone, brace yourselves. Don't fall off your chair. No, Messi did do a post-game interview with Apple. And he said, they asked him what's wrong with the team. Yeah. And he complained about the ref. He said, well, this is not an excuse, but said the referee, when I went to complain, he said he didn't know the rule, that he didn't know that rule, and that he didn't see it that way. And that is wrong. And that he said MLS really, he said, this has happened numerous times now in key moments with bad referee decisions. And MLS needs to take a look at some of their referees and take a look at their officiating. So that was his main complaint about the game, was about that play. He said that after that play, then everything went downhill after that and whatever. But still, that was one goal. Okay. Right. They end up scoring 2 more after that. So let's say they get that 1 goal, and let's say that it's not fair. Let's say it's controversial. Let's say that was not even a legal pass, whatever the case may be. Let's say, even if you say that, still, Miami scored 0 the rest of the game. Messi was there. Suarez was there. Busquets, Alba, the big 4, everybody. Fafa came in later in the second half. Miami could not produce a single goal. Dado Allende, who had 2 goals against San Jose, nothing. So 0 goals for Miami and 2 more goals that were not contested, by Orlando. So there's really no excuse when you lose 3-0 at home with your full squad.
And it's interesting too. I was watching the game and listening to what the announcers were saying about some of it. And again, it's another game where Miami controlled possession longer, but yet didn't create the chances, necessary. And it's almost like teams are conceding that, knowing we're gonna get a few chances on this counterattack or you name it. And if we pounce, that might be it's what we've been talking about the teams that are devising ways to beat this team now. There's no fear anymore.
Let them get the ball. They're saying don't even try. Yeah,
right.
Don't try. If Messi's dribbling around or Suarez, Busquets,
like let
them have their nice little pretty passes. They're beautiful passers. They really are.
Yeah.
Let them get all their passes. At some point, there's going to be some breakdown. And we will get a counter. At some point, they will turn the ball over because Messi and Suarez, both, a lot of times they're dribbling into 3 or 4 defenders. Somebody loses the ball.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing you know, it's halfway down the field and Miami's chasing.
And the fear factor, the awe factor, whichever one you want to use, it's gone. Completely gone.
It's gone because the other teams, this team has shown that they're not only invincible, they're beatable. I mean, everyone around the league now is looking and saying, okay, Vancouver beat them 5-1 over 2 games.
Yep.
Minnesota beat them 4-1. Orlando beat them 3-0. Chicago Fire ties them 0-0. Toronto 1-1.
Yeah.
Everyone around the league is the bottom of the barrel. Everyone is looking at these stats and looking at the standings and the scores and saying, hey, if all those teams can do it, then we can too. So the question is now, what is going to happen? What's the players' mood? What's the players' morale? We talked to several players. Here's what Yannick Bright.
Yeah.
Here's what Yannick Bright had to say about the team mood right now. What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, I think as players too, we got to take accountability, for what happened, and it's a period, it's a moment like this. It's obviously tough, and like I said, we got to take accountability, and we just need one game, to turn it all around and find ourselves again, and and just to keep going the better way.
For your point of view, what do you think it's missing from you guys to get back on track? You guys were doing great.
Well, I think me first. We can talk about tactics as much as you want, but when you miss the balls to play, it's hard. And I think, like I said, we gotta look in the mirror and take accountability, every single one of us, and just trying to change the way it's going right now.
Facing Philly next match, it's a tough one. They are taking the standings at the top. So how do you think that match will be?
I mean, it's going to be as hard as any other match. We just have to, approach it a different way than what we've been approaching it right now, and hopefully it's going to be better.
Well, there's no translation needed.
No.
There, Yannick Bright. Yannick Bright.
Not on this
saying,
one.
Yannick Bright basically saying everyone needs to look in the mirror. Everybody needs to be accountable. That, it's not time to point fingers. Everyone has to look in the mirror and say, we have to do better. We have to do better. We have to turn this thing around. The Philadelphia game is going to be really tough, but, he said that they have to each look in the mirror. And I do think that that's true. Like I was saying before, and I say in my column, I describe in detail about some of the backstory of what happened, speculation about why Tata left. And, it's very easy to just say Javier Mascherano is a terrible coach. The team was winning last year with Tata. Now they're not winning. What's the difference? The coach, fire the coach. But you have to also realize that the coach of this team, whether it's Tata or whether it's Javier Mascherano, their arms are a little bit tied because this is Messi's team. This is Messi's team. He is the GOAT, but best player of all time and all that. And this club and the league, they need Messi to be happy. He must be happy. Messi must be happy because he drives ticket sales, he drives ticket prices, he drives merchandise sales, he drives TV ratings, he drives everything with this team. And even around the league, when he goes and plays somewhere, they sell out, they play in bigger stadiums. All the other teams in the league are making money because of Lionel Messi. So they want him to be happy. The club owners want him to be happy. The coaches want him to be happy. His teammates want him to be happy. Everybody defers to him. They defer to him. And so we don't know because we are not there in any of these team meetings or meetings that may be going on between Mascherano, the players, Mascherano and Messi, or the little group of four with Mascherano. Does he have complete control of this team? Is he complete control of the team? Or is it kind of a group decision that involves Messi? And it's got to be a little difficult, which I mentioned in my column. Mascherano is 40 years old. He is their peer. He was their teammate for many years with Barcelona. He was Messi's teammate with the national team of Argentina. Will he feel comfortable? Does he have the authority? Does he have the authority to make decisions if Messi and the other guys don't agree with those decisions? We don't know because we're not there in these meetings, but it is an interesting question that needs to be asked. And for example, should Luis Suarez be starting at this point? I know we mentioned before, he was saying, oh, you guys were all asking, why is he missing the games? Now you're asking, why is he struggling? Why is he playing? But the truth is, Luis Suarez right now is not where he was last year. Last year, he was in the run for the Golden Boot. He was scoring like crazy. He scored 20 goals last season. Right now, he's had a major slump. He's had like 1 goal in 10 or 12 games. He looks slow. His balls, his passes are heavy. He looks slower. And his passing, I looked up the stats from the last game of passing percentages, and he had the lowest passing percentage of the whole team, 62%. He made 21 passes in 90 minutes and 62% passing completion. And for an example, Messi had 80% completion, Jordi Alba 88% completion, Yannick Bright 92% completion, Noah Allen 93% completion, Busquets 93% passing completion, Maxi Falcone 96%. You're seeing very high percentage of pass completions. I know soccer's not a game of stats. I know that for all the experts out there, they're going to say, that's so American to look at stats. But if you look at Suarez, 62% completion, he's not having a good run of play right now.
No,
so the question is,
yeah.
Does he deserve to be there? And does Mascherano have the authority to make those changes if he's Messi's best friend? Is he going to bench Messi's best friend if it is warranted? If he feels it's warranted, how difficult would that conversation be? So
what's
yes,
interesting,
Javier Mascherano. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was saying what's interesting is the correlation, not to oversimplify it, but the correlation of he started off well. And remember a month ago or so, this team looked invincible. They had not lost a match at all, whether it was preseason, all competitions.
They won 14 games, and I think, and that's what Mascherano was saying. That was when it was Disney. That's what he said.
Yeah, right.
That's what he said. And everyone's like, and the defense is so much better now.
And Suarez was playing well during that time, but his absence, both literal absence, not being there when he was off at the wedding or whatever, and then absence in the sense of he's just not himself when he's on the field. It's interesting to note how this team is struggling since that has gone on too. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it factors in for sure.
It does, because when those two are together and they are firing on all cylinders, when those two know each other so well, they have such chemistry, they produce so many good goals together. When they are both playing well, Messi and Suarez, they can do amazing things. But when one of them is off and they rely on each other so much, Messi, let's face it, the forward that he has the most confidence in is Luis Suarez, with reason. The guy has such a history with him.
Yeah.
He is going to have much more trust in passing the ball to Suarez than he has in passing the ball to anyone else, even though they're all the guys are his teammates. That's just natural. That's human nature, that you're going to trust the guy that's been alongside you for so many years. When his sidekick is not playing well, that affects Messi. That affects Messi's ability also to score, because they do a lot of back and forth with each other, a lot of give and goes. They know each other so well. One feeds the other. We saw it so many times last year and at the beginning of the season. It's not happening lately. It is not happening, and that is hurting the team.
We were all talking
So
about
the question,
we were all talking about burnout too at the beginning of the year when he was playing every match. We were all talking about burnout.
Yes.
And I say this understanding that he just missed those 2 games. Maybe I don't know how much resting he was doing, but he missed those 2 games. But are we seeing the burnout? 39.
It could be. Yeah, he's getting up in age, and he played so many minutes. He was playing all the time, all those minutes. Then he goes away, was away for a week, and I'm sure he wasn't training. He was on a family trip after the wedding. He wasn't training. So he came back maybe a little bit rusty, and he did not have a good game against Orlando. Let's hear what Javier Mascherano had to say.
Javier, buenas noches. Desde Vancouver, el equipo ha caído en una dinámica negativa. Hoy se vio muy negativa. Se vio por momentos desorientado en la cancha. ¿Crees que hubo un quiebre tras la eliminación con Vancouver? Porque el equipo no venía teniendo estos errores. Y la segunda breve, ¿crees que hoy Suárez está para jugar 90 minutos?
Pues, a ver, claramente ha pasado algo que el equipo ha perdido muchísimo en confianza. Hemos bajado el nivel individual y el nivel colectivo, y está claro que de alguna u otra manera lo hemos intentado con diferentes sistemas, con diferentes nombres, y a día de hoy nos está costando. Seguiremos intentándolo, seguiremos viendo cuál es la manera. A mi manera de ver, hoy habíamos intentado una línea de 5 para igualarle a sus 5 puntas, que la realidad, y para poder presionar más arriba y jugar en campo rival. Creo que la mayor parte del primer tiempo funcionó, pero claro, cuando estás jugando prácticamente emparejado en toda la cancha, mano a mano, cualquier error te puede costar un gol, y como lo vimos en el primer gol, ¿no? Con respecto a Luis, mira, el otro día al final nos jugó 2 partidos y me preguntaban qué pasaba, o si estaba el hecho de que él tuviese permiso para viajar, como de alguna manera cuestionarlo. Al final, siempre el que está afuera es más importante que el que está adentro, sobre todo cuando los resultados no se dan. Creo que sí, que está para jugar 90 minutos, si no, de otra manera lo sacaríamos, pero no voy a empezar a caer en nombres en particular. Acá, si hay un responsable, soy yo, y esto es así. Deberé, durante la semana, debemos, sobre todo, seguir trabajando, ajustar cosas. Sé que no sirve de nada que describamos el momento, sino que hay que actuar y empezar a volver a esa dinámica positiva que tuvimos al comienzo de la liga.
Well, he said a lot, as usual, Javier Mascherano. I will give him this. Even in these tough moments, he gets asked a lot of tough questions, and he really doesn't lose his cool. He stays calm. He explains everything. He's been, to me, he seems very transparent with the media. He basically was asked, it seems like there was a downward spiral after the elimination by Vancouver, that seemed to sort of break the team in some way, that there was a breakdown. And he said, yes, definitely. He said that after being eliminated by Vancouver from the Champions Cup, something happened. There's been a downward trend. And he said the team has lost a lot of confidence. He said there's been a drop in the performance, individual and collective. He said we have tried different schemes, we've tried different lineups, different names, and we're getting some of the same results. He said we tried a 5-man line this last game. For the first half, he thinks it worked. But then when you're playing 1-on-1 v1, the whole game across the whole field, if one mistake can be very costly, which is what happened with the first goal. He was asked about Luis Suarez. Do you think he's is he fit to play 90 minutes? And he said, look, last week you guys were asking me, all concerned that Luis was missing the games and if he had permission to play. Now you're saying, should he be playing? And he said, it always seems that the players that are out of the lineup are more important than the players in when the team loses, which is, it does happen that if a player misses a game and the team loses, automatically attention turns to who missed the game. Would he have made a difference? He said he feels that Luis is capable of playing 90, and if he wasn't, he would not be playing. He would take him out. And he said that at the bottom, but he said, I'm not going to start pointing fingers and saying things about individual players. I'm not going to critique individual players. He said, bottom line is, this is my responsibility. I'm the coach, and this is my responsibility. So he is shouldering the responsibility for the breakdown of this team right now. And I discuss in my column at miamiherald.com, once again, I discuss whether that is, whether it is only him that should shoulder the blame or whether there are other factors with this club that factor into all of this in a bigger picture.
Yeah. And it's a complicated matter, and this team is not going to have much leeway to get it fixed because here comes a road trip to Philadelphia, another Eastern Conference powerhouse that they would have to face again and have to figure out a way to top probably down the stretch if they do want to make a run at the MLS Cup, which was what they've set out to do. But this team is slipping in the standings. Every point is becoming more and more valuable if they can get it down the road. Remember that they had all that leeway. We talked about, it's early and all that. The margin for error is shrinking now. I mean, it's not gone, but it's starting to get a little less because they're starting to get more and more into the season. And if you look at the schedule, Philly coming up at home, then they have 2 home games, which one is Montreal, but the other, Columbus Crew.
Crew.
And then look a little over the horizon. This has nothing to do with the MLS standings, but here comes that Club World Cup. And right now, this roster is only scary in that competition in name alone, not anything else, the way they're playing right now.
Yeah. I mean, Sergio Busquets said at one point in an interview a few weeks ago, the team right now is not ready. That got a lot of worldwide attention because some people interpreted it to mean that this team is not good enough to play in the Club World Cup. I think what he meant was the way they were playing, they need to get better. The way they were playing, they are not ready for the Club World Cup. But you're talking about, yes, they have some tough games coming up. Philadelphia in first place next week at home against Columbus Crew. We know how good Columbus Crew is. They did beat them, but it was on one, header goal, whatever, by Ben Hakramashi. So, it's going to be tough. They've got some tough games coming up against the teams that are in the top of the conference. And then, yes, on the horizon, less than 1 month away on June 14th, here at Hard Rock Stadium, this was all set up again because of Messi, because of their brand. FIFA somehow worked out the draw in the schedule so that Inter Miami with Messi is playing in the opener of this tournament at Hard Rock Stadium against an Egyptian team, Al Ahly. Al Ahly, I did a story recently. They are signing players. They're signing players for this tournament because they are so pumped up to play Inter Miami. Okay. So they're going to have to play that team against an Egyptian team here at home, Hard Rock Stadium, in front of a big crowd, presumably, and in front of the eyes of the world. Everyone wants to see Messi and Inter Miami with their pink shirts. And then they have to play Brazilian team Palmeiras, and they have to play Porto of Portugal, 2 of the best teams in those countries. This is going to be a very tough task for them to get out of the group. Their goal is obviously to get out of the group. I don't know that they think they're going to win it with teams like, Real Madrid and, all these teams playing, but, Bayern Munich and all the teams from the EPL, but they would like to get out of the group. That's not going to be easy. They have to play better than they're playing now, and they have less than a month. They have the next 3 weeks to try to right the ship in MLS and get themselves ready for the Club World Cup.
And we have one more player testimonial here to show you about everything that's going wrong with this team from Fafa Picault, who was, as we mentioned before, was back. Here's what Fafa had to say.
No, obviamente decepcionado, como dije, frustrado. Creo que todos somos frustrados, pero nada más es un momento y hay que salir de eso como grupo. La única manera es hacerlo juntos, como grupo, como hermanos y ya. Hay varias cosas, esas son cosas que hablaremos entre nosotros en el vestuario. Obviamente no es algo que nos gusta a nosotros, pero sabemos que es solo un momento, no todo el año va a pasar así, hay que mantener la vibra positiva, una mentalidad positiva, sabiendo que es un momento nada más y nos quedamos como un grupo unido.
Rafa, con tu experiencia, ¿cuál es el camino corto para salir de un momento así?
Yo creo que unir al grupo aún más, seguir trabajando, no entrar en pánico, porque en ese momento estamos estamos en mayo, así que aún falta muchísimo tiempo. Obviamente es un club donde la afición y todo el mundo, también nosotros, esperamos mucho de nosotros, queremos ganar todos los partidos, pero en el momento que no es así, no hay que entrar en pánico, hay que buscar salida y quedarnos juntos y no buscar culpable, quién es el culpable. Es un grupo, es un equipo, somos un equipo, un club y tenemos que pelear juntos y así será.
So Fafa, as we said, the trilingual Fafa, no, not tri, he speaks 7 languages. Anyway, speaking in Spanish here, he said, look, we are frustrated. We're frustrated, but we have to stick together as a group. We have to stay unified. We are brothers. We are brothers. We are teammates. We're going to talk these things through in the locker room. And it's just a moment. We don't view this as, it's not going to be this way the rest of the season. He said, it's only May. He pointed out, he said, it's only May. There's a long way to go. It's just a moment. There is no reason to panic. This is not the time to panic. It's only May. He repeated it. And then he said, this team, there are very high expectations of this team from the outside and from within, from themselves. They have very, very high expectations, and they are not panicking. They're going to stay unified. They're going to stay together. And, he remained optimistic that they're going to break out of this slump.
And it can happen. I mean, they can flip it as easily as it's flipped one way. It could flip the other way, but they have to identify how to do it and just realize it's going to have to be earned. This isn't the mystique. They're not going to win this on mystique and all the, we have the best players in the world, all of that stuff. Yeah. Okay, fine. These guys are getting up there now, and the speed factor, the stylistic clash of the way they play, the way MLS clubs play, even the officiating, because they're look at the clashes Messi's
even
having.
The refs are like,
yeah.
No, the referee now is like, walk away now.
Walk away. Get out of my face. I don't care who you are.
Goat.
Yeah.
Walk away now. And American ref.
Right. And even from and that part of it too. But even the way games are officiated in this league as opposed to what they're used to, in Spain, around the world, in international competition. There's even a style clash there going on as well. So all that needs to get adjusted to, and it's a tall order, but is it impossible? No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure, we've seen turnarounds, remarkable turnarounds in plenty of sports over the years. And who better to do it than some of the greatest players of all time that happen to be all on the same team in Miami.
Yeah, they have the talent.
Yeah.
There's no question they have the talent. They have the skill. They have the talent. They do need speed and athleticism. That is a big thing in this league. I mean, MLS, as they all say, all these guys who come from Europe, they're used to a much more tactical style. Mm-hmm. They come here and more technical. A lot of the players who come from other countries, especially in the European leagues, they're used to a more technical style and more, here. There's a lot more of speed. Possession. There's a lot of physicality. And so, they still maintain possession. You see, I read you those percentages of they are completing their passes, and they are possessing the ball, 65-70% of the time, and still losing by 3, by 4 goals. So these teams, it's not that the other teams, and Mascherano said it the other day too, it's not like the other teams are dominating us and controlling the game. No, Miami is controlling the ball and controlling the game, but they are losing on counters. They're losing on set pieces. They're losing on moments. They're losing on moments of mistakes and moments of lack of speed and lack of physicality that the other teams have. I wanted to say one thing at the end of my column. Jorge Mas said on the day of the Club World Cup draw, "I am a proud Miamian, and we will show the world what we as a club and what Leo Messi has done, which is not just change the sport in America, but change the perception of American soccer around the world. The eyes of the world will be on that opening game against Al Ahly. Hundreds of millions of people will be watching."
No pressure.
So the pressure's on. The pressure's on. Not only with this MLS, now they've got this Philly game, Columbus Crew coming to town next week, and then in a few weeks, facing the Egyptian team that is bringing in reinforcements to play Messi, and then Porto of Portugal, and then Palmeiras of Brazil. Those are going to be some tough games. It's going to be a tough stretch, and these guys need to.
And who knows who else
if they get stuff together.
And who knows who else if they actually get through that pool round. We know there's some heavyweights in this tournament from around the world. So and I know
they would be.
We won't get to dive into that. Well, we will dive into this in another episode, I'm sure. But pressure is on Miami itself and Hard Rock Stadium after the debacle of a while back, which we won't. I think people know what we're referring to.
Yeah, security.
So the pressure's on there too. But we'll dive into that down the road at some point. But I think that it's not just Inter Miami. Like this is a spectacle that. Miami needs to score a goal in more ways than one.
Miami needs to make a good showing because the whole world is watching the city and the team.
Definitely. Well, we'll be back. We'll talk about how it goes for Miami out in Philly this weekend, and we'll look ahead when we come back next week to another busy week, which will be another double game week. It'll be as they face Montreal, and then that big one against the Crew. And the Club World Cup drawing closer and closer. But until then, we thank you for watching Inside Inter Miami, either on YouTube or at MiamiHerald.com or just listening to us. Remember, you can catch us on iTunes, Spotify, you name it. We're on there, and we appreciate you, and we hope you enjoy the games this weekend. Till next week, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching Inside Inter Miami.